Guitar School of America.
Hey, Roy, Guitar School of America, feeling patriotic?
How's that, Pat?
Oh, that was excellent. That was excellent. Yeah, hey, so basically, I know I was talking to you the other day, but, how are things in the world of guitar school? Has everything good, family good, everybody doing well?
Yeah, everything is, it's, for teaching, I still have a name in what I do, so it's still there. You know what I'm trying to say? Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to keep the place. I'd have to go.
Right, right. Are you still finding people that are into quality instruction?
Well, they find me. It's internet.
Yeah, it's funny. I took it up. There's not a lot of details, not a lot of things out there. You keep a very low profile.
Yeah, and get this. Nobody calls me. They send me a email.
Right. Oh, are you checking email?
Yeah, I am, but I got to tell you, it's really ridiculous that, my website, you've seen it.
Yeah, yeah.
It just says contact form, but, it also has our phone number.
People, I tell you, it's getting more and more like, actually talking on the phone. I text people. Have you started texting yet?
No. Nope, that's one I haven't started. Nope. Seems slow to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you got the flip phone and you got 3 letters on each number, yeah, it gets a little cumbersome.
Well, the other thing with me is, you know this from knowing me, my mind moves extremely fast. If somebody doesn't keep me interested on something, I'm right off of the subject totally. My mind moves extremely fast. I'm a better teacher than I am a listener.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That definitely, yeah, I can definitely see that.
Right, just like I said the other day, how many people do you know would go through 4,000 pictures for a video that I'm making nothing on? It costs me money.
Yeah, it's something. That's something. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine going through the whole thing.
Well, I didn't even know how to approach it, but when I did, finally got going, it's like just approximately 8 months of work. Because if you also don't price out the what you're trying to show, it's going to cost you. I wouldn't even be able to do it. I did it a smart way. The lawyer told me you can show the fronts of newspaper headlines, no charge.
Right, yeah. So you learned a lot.
That's what I did.
You learned a lot about print and video law.
Yeah, and then licensing. I learned a lot there. You know what licensing is? Nothing more than pay.
Oh yeah. Basically, if you take a picture and people want to use it, it's like writing a song, but it has a couple different things, like mechanical, all the other things. It's got its own nuances, but yeah, it's certainly that's intellectual property. That's a whole branch out there.
But if you get a chance, if you remind me during this talk of what you're going to ask about, remind me to get your email address so that I can send you, whether you use it or not, a copy of the video.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you describe it to anybody down there or the class or whatever, make sure you get this line in there. I don't know if you can remember this or not, but as I thought of it myself, it's a provocative video documentary that compels people to stop and think about what mankind has inflicted on each other.
Indeed. Well said.
That's all it's about. It's just about hatred. It wasn't about terrorism. It's just that's our new form.
Yeah, it's true. So did you vote in the last election?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's a strange time right now. This is a very bizarre time.
We're in a very, very bizarre thing, and now you see they found all that information on the Clintons. They put up the thing to try to, they paid the money to have the DNC investigate the Russians to try to get Trump involved. Mrs. Clinton paid the money. It just happened last night. This is like, this is odd shit. I try not to get too political motivated.
Clinton's dirty, Trump's dirty. I think Bernie was about the only one who wasn't as dirty as the rest of them.
Yeah. But I will tell you one thing, back to this project that you're doing. if you do get to show that video or anything, I would like to know what people think of that. You know, like what it might be good for you to add into this if they do look at that part of it. What do they think of it?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I gotta say that a bunch of 20-somethings that are listening to rap and hip hop and dance music, it's a strange time as far as the youth. You know, I tell you, the teacher does like trivia questions. He puts like a picture up. He'll have a theme like famous people and live, or just images and what decade it was in. And I tell you, these kids are like. I forget, it was one of the Beatles, and, like one kid was like, oh, that's...
Well, who do you say it was?
He thought, no, one kid knew it was the Beatles,
Yeah, right. Well, don't forget that this video features Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi. See, those sayings that I have in there are about that, that's because they're intelligent sayings. World peace is what it's about.
Yeah, it's a nice aspiration. I don't know. I feel like, I'm not a religious person, but it has an end of times feel to it, doesn't it?
Well, you can write songs all you want, and their chance of that, like I said, I got looking over one of them now for Hallmark Channel.
Yeah, good stuff.
One of the new ones that I did. But the catch is, that's really tough to sell another song about a girl, a guy, a love affair, I might be better off somebody looking to do a documentary. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, indeed. I'll tell you what, just as far as what I'm thinking right now, every part of every little public relations package has like a feature story, like where you read and there's like a local veterinarian or something, and hey, when they were in business, when they start practice, what do they do, what differentiates them. So guess, start at the beginning. I mean, where were you born?
Staten Island.
Staten Island, and how old were you when you moved away from there?
Well, let's say it was about 10 years old. Came upstate.
Would the family find work, or?
One of the family's sisters passed away, and we decided to come upstate. I always visited here because this was called the country.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Staten Island was okay way back then, but it was still projects and stuff, and it was starting to get rugged.
Yeah, it's changing back now. Everything's getting so expensive. All the poor people are moving out, and all the Russians and the Chinese, and there's still an Italian way, but people coming and buying that property. You walk through Harlem now; it's amazing.
It is amazing. It is. There's no doubt about it. Now, what questions are you going to ask with this thing now?
I'm just going through a little list. I got some stuff up on my screen. But did you start playing in Staten Island, or did that happen later?
Nope, started playing in Staten Island. Ukulele. My coming from a musical family. My father was a fiddle player, and my mother was lap steel.
Oh, man. It must have been cool around family time and holidays and get-togethers.
Oh, yeah. The music was a part of every single day in the house. Records playing, all types of stuff. My sister listening to, all the records of that time, Elvis Presley, this and that, etc. But my parents always played.
And, as far as those original recordings, I mean, what struck you that, just said, you wanted to be, what inspired you as far as like early recordings and things? Like, I think like when I first heard Peter Frampton or the Doobie Brothers and, Steve Miller when I was a little kid, what heard you and, inspired you to want to do it?
Well, I was already playing, but the music was already in my blood. I played when my father showed me how to play ukulele because he played the instrument besides fiddle, like I said. But soon as the Beatles hit in '64, it sealed where I was going. I said, this ukulele is too small. I need a bigger, same type of thing. I went to guitar.
Right. What was your first guitar?
First guitar was a 3-pickup Kent guitar. The band I got in, they wouldn't let me use it on stage. He said, I had to do a tryout, and they said, you can't use that. You play great, but you can't use that. You're going to use one of our red Cromwell guitars. They were made in Sweden.
How old were you when you picked up guitar?
I was 12.
12. So by the time you moved up to Binghamton and your first band, what was your first band called?
First band that
Yeah.
I played in?
Yeah.
The first one, now let me think of that for a second. It wasn't the Copycats. The first one was, let me think for a second. I got to think of that. I'm going to come back to that question. I got to think about that, but the Copycats was the second one that they hired me.
Yeah, how old were you at that time?
Those guys were 3 years older than me, so they looked like giants.
And you were what, probably like 15, somewhere around there?
14. Oh, but in this time period, you realize, right, Rick Derringer, guys like me, all those bands, those people were playing professionally, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, you couldn't get a day off.
Mm.
You couldn't get a day off. In 1967, Ronnie Dio's booking agent up in Cortland, we're going to call him Ronnie Dio's booking agent because he has a name. It was called Pop Renaissance Enterprise. They signed the band along with tons of other bands, and he had at least 75 bands crisscrossing New York State, Pennsylvania, up by Vermont, and Canada, into Canada. There was just work everywhere, everywhere.
And what kind of gigs were you doing?
You name it. Colleges, clubs. Even though I was young, I still had a fake birth certificate from Pennsylvania because the keyboard player was 21. The keyboard player was the mother worked for Pennsylvania, and they got me a fake ID. So as time went on, I still had this ID that I was a lot older. The guy said, "Man, you don't look that old." I go, "I am."
Once they see the fake ID, you can't really show them the real one once you're 18. Well, yeah, the drinking age was 18 back then. You could drink and drive a lot more easily. That definitely helped. But what kind of songs were you doing in the original bands?
In the first bands were all the hits of those days. Tommy James and the Shondells. Paul Revere and the Raiders. Let me think.
Well,
Hang On Sloopy was by, who was that by?
The McCoys.
McCoys, yep. All of those things before Beatles really nailed it, it was that type of stuff. There was instrumentals too. Telstar was an instrumental by the Ventures and stuff. And it's ironic. There's a movement going through the world. I loved that song, so we played that. And Ventures, we played a lot of Ventures songs. They were an instrumental band. 3 guitars and drums.
Oh, the Wipeout, right?
Yeah, I didn't play that one, but Penetration and all those. You used to have to play a break song. When you were going on a break, you'd play a song that was a break song. And then you'd say, we're going to take a little break, we'll be back. And you'd play something that was instrumental.
Okay, back then you had the union was, there was the music union back then, right?
Very, very big music union. Big. International.
Yeah, and you didn't just walk up and play in bars and play for the door and stuff like that back then, right? You were actually represented.
Right. If you didn't get in the union, they came after you.
Yeah.
They came after you to get in the union. Yep, Local 380.
Yeah, different time. So, actually, by the time you started, I know you played the 335. When did you settle on that, or were there other guitars before?
Yep, first one after the Kent 3 pickup, moved on to a very good guitar. Guild Starfire 3.
Oh, yeah.
Single cutaway, pure white with black on it. Still haven't found one yet today.
What happened to that guitar?
Traded that in for the 335.
And you've been playing that since?
That I've been playing since. Of course, I have a double neck, 2 different Ovation acoustic electrics, different types, pedal steel, lap steel, Rickenbacker 12-string. I have a lot of different guitars.
Yeah, and as far as amplifiers, still sticking with the Marshall?
Yeah, but when I started, it was Ampeg.
Yeah, people forget they made guitar amps. You know, they just think of that SVT, but yeah, they made a bunch of other stuff too for a while.
And that thing kicked ass. That was a tube 50-watt Protoflex top. The top flips out of the bottom and locks on the top.
Oh yeah, yeah, we had one of those guitar center. I remember that.
And we always ordered it with two 12-inch JBLs. We didn't play nothing but JBLs in the old days or Jensen. That thing screamed. You know why? It was a closed-back amp. People think that Marshall's one of your first closed-back amps. And then that means the sound all goes forward. Fender was open-backed. 50% or 40% goes backwards and goes off, hits the wall and goes forward. That's how Fender works. But Marshall brought out the first ones that you think is all firing forward because it's a closed back, but they're wrong. Ampeg was the first.
Mm.
That amp was a screamer with the Guild, had a Bigsby on it. I could do Hendrickson stuff, screaming feedback at the end of a number, and hold it with a vibrato lever. The Guild Starfire 3 is a full hollow body, no centerpiece up the middle. It's not semi-hollow like the 335.
Oh yeah, you definitely get some feedback out of that, especially even when you didn't want it.
Yep. The first band was the Misfortunes.
The Misfortunes, you know, doing
Yep.
the hangouts. And when did you start? And you know, originally like high school gigs, dances. I mean, just describe the scene in the late '60s, early '70s.
Early mid '60s. This is
Yeah.
extremely primitive. High school dances all over New York State, Pennsylvania, this and that paid good money. Booking agents booked them. You just can't believe where I went to just high schools, and including Ronnie Dio, I'm telling you. Ronnie Dio could get $1,000 at Towanda High School.
Oh, jeez, I remember.
And he wasn't even Ronnie Dio then. He was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets.
Yeah. Oh, you can dig up old YouTube recordings of him singing doo-wop. You know, people forget that he was like 70 years old when he died.
Right. He's 67 or so, I think he was, yeah. But the catch is, you know, when you talk about this, it takes 10 years on a musician is nothing. That's absolutely nothing. So the high schools and those gigs back then, everything, you just can't believe it. I went to places that the booking agent, we were booked 1 year in advance by Pop Renaissance Enterprise in 1967. 1 year in advance. Alfred University, this, that, high schools. Sometimes you'd pull up to this place, you wouldn't even know where you were. Groton Teen Center, tons of teen centers back then. Tons of teen centers, packed with people, just packed. When the band played, it would be packed. Here's a good one for you. The Old Mill in Towanda. And their first gig there, they got to the place and they said, well, what the hell is this? It's a stage that revolves around forward to the band, to the audience when the show starts. The stage has a full wall that goes all the way up so nobody can see it. You're set up on the back side of the stage, and they can't see around it. There's curtains on the left and the right. And when the band goes to start, the full stage revolves slowly around into a room packed with kids and a great big lights and ball in the middle hanging with lights on it. Unbelievable.
The good old days. So
I played so many gigs. I got to tell you something. In those days, I played a minimum of 2 to 4 gigs a week. So figure that out. 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. 6 years.
And
that's a lot of gigs.
Yeah, and back then, how did you learn to play guitar? You know, people didn't get on YouTube and just learn to play songs. I imagine, you know, rock and roll was pretty new, so it was like exploratory. I mean, what were you doing to learn to practice? Playing by ear with old records? What was the process?
Well, here's something only a guy like you would understand, but it's very difficult for me to put this in words. You're going to understand it right away, but you'll have to think about to what degree I took this to. My father's family, his mother was a great piano player in Canada. She's the one who started this, Lois Ettinger. eons ago. You know, they're all long toasted, gone. But she had such an ear for music that when she heard a song, it didn't take her within 5 to 8 minutes, she had the song down on piano. She passed that to my father, who could do that on fiddle. His sister could do it on piano, but none of the rest of them could. There was 8 kids. Then in my father's family, I got it. My sister didn't get it. My sister was normal, lived a normal life. That's my joke I always tell people. But my ear was so heavy on it, I could figure out tunes. I just could figure them out fast.
Just drop a needle on a record, on an LP or a 78?
Yeah, 45s, and just figure them out. That's it. That's why I got the job in both those bands. They said he's the only guy who's going to be able to figure that out, and that's why I got the job. So they said,
yeah, the chord progressions, even the Beatles, are a little bit more interesting than the power chords of today. I mean, how did you know the names of these things, or were you just putting your fingers on the fretboard and finding a sharp 7 flat, or flat 9, sharp 9 chords and minor 7 flat 5s? Were you just like fooling around with voicings, or were there like nice chord diagrams back then to refer to?
No nice chord diagrams. I knew the chords myself. I figured out, and I'm going to be honest, my parents said, you got to take lessons. So I took lessons, but what he showed me I already knew. And again, with my ear, he'd say, you're not reading that, are you? And I go, no, I heard what you played, so I'm playing it back. And that's how it just kept going. But, he still showed me the very first D9 chord.
Right.
Stuff like that, but no, I once I saw what bar chords were, I picked it up. All the stuff you saw from me, G form, C form, E form, A form, and all this other stuff, those sharp 7, sharp 9s, this and that, I taught all that to myself. No one ever showed me those scales ever.
And as far as
no one ever showed me G form, C form, or anything. I figured it out because I said to myself, there's something Jimi Hendrix here is doing. There's something in this. There's something we're missing here.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, as far as the late 60s, once you started seeing Hendrix and Zeppelin and even up into the 70s. Now, but at that time you were playing even more, right? After high school or late high school, early on. Then what was the scene like?
More work, 4 to 6 days a week from 1971 up. Unbelievable work. Clubs like Barney Google's in Palmyra, 5 days. The Cell Block in Batavia, 5 days. You had one right here on Front Street, which was the Inferno, which was right where the car wash is on Front Street, right next to the spot. That ran 6 nights of rock of the best bands out of Rochester, Buffalo, everything. Everybody came in there. Bands like Monolith with a girl singer out of Buffalo, Orange, the band Orange, with a very famous guitarist, Donnie Bergman. Real good, 335, real good. These were people who played songs to perfection. Ronnie Dio played there, but that was 6 nights of rock. And you could go to these places. 6 nights of rock. The Stone Pony in Delaware, the Nutshell in Monticello, 1,500-seat room my sister came to see us play in. Freaking huge. Here's what the guy said when he saw our truck. We had a Mack tool truck.
Yeah.
He says, geez, I was worried you guys had enough equipment when I saw the small truck. He's used to big rider trucks, great big gigantic hydraulic tailgate rider trucks, because that's how big the stage was.
And who famous came out of that scene? Can you think of anybody that we would know today, or anybody would know today that came out of that? I know I've heard Dakota.
Right. You know who was friends? This might be interesting to you. Who was? Oh, definitely. See, everybody was recording as time went on. Everybody starting in 70, 71, whatever you want to say. People started recording in your cellars and experimenting with recordings. A good friend of our family His father and my father immigrated here from Canada. Brad Delp from Boston, the band Boston.
All right.
His father and my father were best of buds they grew up together in Canada. They both came here. Two of them went to Staten Island, my father and his brother. The Delps went to Boston. During high school, they always used to write back and forth. How's Roy doing in bands? Good, oh, still playing. What's Brad doing? Oh, he's still playing every weekend. Of course, there was no Boston yet. Then I have this letter. It's a collector's letter, and it came from the father to my father, and he said, years later, this is 1976, Brad finally got a record contract. Brad and his friends. Now, the father's real old at this time, so he doesn't even know how to explain this.
Right.
But he says, tell Roy their first gig is going to be Binghamton, New York, and he's going to call Roy as soon as he gets there. And he did. He called me and gave him backstage pass. He went from making $90 a week at a factory job to a multi-millionaire, world famous.
Yeah, back then it seemed like there was like too many bands. Like, how do you even find the one to sign?
Well, their band was rejected as much as the band I had in that year. I had a different band in that year. I had two different bands there. One was called Hot Flash. That was a good band. It was a picture of us in an old deserted house, superimposed burning. It was such a good picture. I don't know if I have any one anymore. It was on the front of all the advertisement companies companies used to sell 8x10 glossy pictures to bands so that they could drop them off for promo.
Right.
Glossy. You used to have enough gigs that you could put this stuff together. Are you taking all this in, or no? Is this killing you?
Oh yeah, I'm going. By the way, we're audio recording. I'll pick through all this later.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And Brad Delp, when he came here, he was in total shock. He was in total shock. They barely had enough songs to play 45 minutes, I think. They were never a warm-up band. I went backstage with him. The guy was like, he goes, first time I ever met him personally, but he was not Boston that you and I know.
Right.
He sold, 25 million copies. He's in the World Book of Guinness Records. He was just Brad Delp. The next time I talked to him after that first gig was Binghamton, he was building a house for his father, building a house for his uncle, and
right. Building houses for the family, right?
disappearing into stardom. He was he's deceased, he self-inflicted. He was such a nice person. Even the mother said this. He couldn't take it. He just tried to help everybody. He took some of my demo tapes. He was a really good person, and then when stardom hits like this, you don't talk to people anymore. They just kind of, you just leave them alone. You got to be professional.
Yeah.
And they disappear into the music world with probably one of the most famous bands ever.
Oh, absolutely. I went and I saw them I think it was summer before last with the new singer. Good singer. Obviously, you're not going to replace a singer in Boston with somebody shitty, but definitely a good show. The harmonies, the guitars, everything was spot on.
Now think about this. That singer, they got two singers that were covering what Brad did in his basement. And I want to tell you this. I have some of the original pictures of this. They recorded that on a 12-track machine in his basement. Just an old grungy basement, like I have recorded also.
Yeah, Roy Ettinger recording studios.
I've done big studio recordings also,
right.
But the problem with big studio recordings, you can't be creative because the clock's running and you're paying too much an hour.
Right, you're not sitting there trying to jam out a riff or anything. You're going in there with your finished product and laying it down.
Yeah, and I did that with Dice. Just went in, and Dice only needed one or two takes, and it was done. That was it. But the catch is you can't do any this, that, etc. When you have your own studio or you're recording your solo like he was doing, and I did also, and many other people did, you can then go back and say, well, I didn't think I liked that. I'm going to add something else. You go to a big studio, the clock's running.
Right. Yeah, as the 70s went on, what did you start seeing? I know at some point you had Dice.
Had Dice, it had so much work, warm-ups now. Larger warm-up things, you know, going on. The shirts on Capitol Records, Blue Oyster Cult, the Pure Prairie League with Amy, all kinds of other small, odd bands that were on record labels. Dakota, they were on Columbia Records. They were also the Buoys, B-O-U-Y-S. They sold 1 million records. They're out of Scranton here. Tons of bands upstate recording, professional recording artists. Tons of bands. Just like truckloads up here. Chuck Mangione, later on Ronnie Dio, Bobby Comstock and the Counts with a song called I Want to Do It, a rock tune, but selling millions of records. All kinds of records coming out in upper New York State here. Ed Wool, one of the hottest guitar players I ever knew, and still alive today and recording in Watertown, New York. Ed Wool. You can punch us in online. The bands, they were on Columbia Records, signed with the booking agency I worked through in 67, 8, 69. He was signed to Columbia Records. It's a picture of a lamb or like a wool, a great big lamb with the feet coming out of it of the band. His sister sang. She's a professional singer also, Claudia Wool, and she sang as good as Janis Joplin. Really good vocals. She was a professional singer. Free Will, another band on there. Ronnie Dio at that time, Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. He was on Decca Records already. This is a time period where people were being signed and just amazing work. There's nobody ever questioned work or where you're going to go. Just here's the address, drive. Went through at least 4 Econoline vans, then 2 huge step vans. You had an accountant, hotel rooms, motel rooms, no rooms.
Right, you slept in the truck a couple times.
But you had enough income coming in that you could do this because the gigs were there, see? Now there's no gigs.
Right.
70s was great. When it turned to the 80s, it was getting rugged. It was getting really rugged. Then in 1983, here come the big change. New York State changed the drinking law from 18 to 19, and in 84 they changed it to 19 to 21. That was it. For all bands in New York State, that was it. Every one of them, starting with me, either voluntarily got out of it or ran for their life, because now all colleges in New York State, no more bands because nobody could drink. So a typical week of what I would have done before, watch this, and this is the actual dates. A Wednesday night at the Orange Monkey nightclub in Rochester. Thursday night at RIT in Rochester. Friday night, Niagara University, just up the road, and Saturday night, Rochester University, before the band would come home. So there's a lot of money been taken in, trucks, road crew, and when you played for a college like that, it's a minimum of 1,000 people in the room. 700, 1,000, all over. They called them mixers.
Yeah, right.
And they made money that way.
Kegs lined up in the gym and all that amazing stuff.
Yep. And they love to see bands. People, I don't think there was I don't recall violence then. I don't recall it. I played all those places, huge clubs, Penny Arcade in Rochester. And that's still there today. But if you've seen the Nutshell in Monticello, that's a big club. It took the guy 2 years to paint the ceiling.
Hey, about what time did you get married and start the family?
No, that's way later. Way later. That's not until 80s.
Right.
Mid 80s. Yeah. No, there was no time for anything like that in this type of thing. So. And then I just started recording on my own, and I said I can't do this anymore. And I already was teaching. Larkins had offered me a job. They said, people would love to know how to play these songs if I started a chart system on how to actually do this by charting the song with tablature, which is an old method of reading notes by numbers from the medieval time. It's the first reading for the lute. And a guy showed it to me once in about 1971, and I started thinking to myself, boy, wouldn't that be something if you could put the note value over it, and then chord strums, and then scales, picture what scale the guy was using, and the finger numbers under it, maybe some pick marks over it, a pull mark, hammer, roll, whatever we needed to do. And I started to develop this. Lo and behold, as I did, the calls started coming into Larkin's. I'd be gone for 4 days. I'd come back. They'd say, well, you took 15 calls from some of these two guys you taught before passing the word. And that's how it all started.
Hey, that was the free love time too. You know, pre-married, playing in a band must have been fun. You know, ladies liked the bands back then as much as they do now.
Yeah, it was. You know, I mean, I agree, but people were there to see music. You go up to Poconos, and I played the Poconos for 4 days. Sure, there's plenty of girls, but the people really just love to just stand and watch a band.
Right.
I can't even say they were dancing. Even high schools. It sounds odd, but they'd swarm in around any kind of band, whether it was Ronnie Dio or something. When Inagata DeVita was out, if somebody could play that, they'd swarm around the band to see that. The thing is because there was no social media, if you wanted to see this, you had to go live to see it.
Right. How'd you develop the singing voice? What made you decide? Were you the front man in the original bands or guitar player? When did you take the front?
Nope, background vocals I was. I harmonized with the other guy when they took me. That's another reason I got the job. I could figure out tunes, but I'm going to be honest with you. The guy I played with, he was better than me because he was extremely talented. He was a first violinist in high school, played keyboard in the band with us, 12-string, melodica, banjo. When we did Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter, he played it with the banjo.
Amazing. So
and you know what he was? Extremely talented family from State Road, and they're still he's still here someplace around here. They were American Indians. Their culture. You know what I mean? They're whatever you want to call it. I'm looking for the word. You know what I'm saying?
American nowadays.
Right. But I mean, he was American Indian, and you want to remember something when people talk about this. You know, we credit the blacks with bringing in the blues and this and that with from all the stuff that they suffered with the South and that. But you want to remember, the first person who started this, the first people that started is the American Indian, because that's what you hear with the
Right.
Jimi Hendrix's song on his first album there's a song there that says, I Don't Live Today.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's about that because his mother was Indian and the father was African American. You can't get any more rhythm than those two people together. So I was background vocals, and then that guy, we couldn't get a weekend off, and there was always a leader in the band. The leader was the bass player. We couldn't get a weekend off. You're booked every single weekend, months and months and months. And this guy said, well, I'm going to go on vacation with my family. I can't keep doing this. And the bass player said to him, well, you're fired. Roy's going to take over vocals. That's how it started.
Yeah. And what were the original songs you were singing and playing?
What was it like singing, or what songs?
What were the songs that you were doing? What voices were you most comfortable with?
The first one, Time Won't Let Me. The next one would be Dirty Water by the Standells. Tommy James. Back to those again, see?
Right, yeah, those high tenor crooners.
Yep, Hanky Panky. Tommy James again. There was just tons and tons of music that people forget influenced the Beatles for them to even get launched. Now, obviously, they were already out, but think of who they heard before this. They heard Smokey Robinson, Roy Orbison. That's where they got their stuff from. Because England is an island, They only had whatever they had over there. They were getting American records. That's where it started.
Right. Those old blues things, the Black Lions, the Howling Wolves, and even some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's why Led Zeppelin, if you punch in Led Zeppelin Steals
Oh, yeah.
on YouTube, every single thing that comes up they've been sued for.
Right. I think of the Lemon song.
Right? Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You is No More got their name on it. It's their name as they're performing it. It has a girl on it. That's a traditional folk song that she wrote. I don't know her name.
Well, hey, she got a little bit paid.
Well, they got the money to pay people off. Once you have the money to pay people off, you can you can use somebody else's song if you're going to pay them. But if you subconsciously plagiarize them, then you got another problem.
Right.
My Sweet Lord was George Harrison was sued for $2 million, and he paid up because the judge said he subconsciously plagiarized the Chiffons hit "He's So Fine." So My Sweet Lord goes, my sweet Lord, he's so fine from the Chiffons, and that 1962 goes, he's so fine, do-lang, do-lang. See?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so,
you ever think you have a good riff, you're writing something cool, and then you go, oh, darn it.
Yeah, well, you can't copyright a chord progression. You can only copyright the melody.
Yes.
So you know who's the publisher on that? The guy who's in jail, Phil Spector.
Oh, man, that was a weird court date. That wig was strange.
Phil Spector was the guy who married Ronnie Ronette, the African-American girl. He's the one who had the recording studio stuff. He's the guy who shot the gun off into the ceiling in the recording studio when people didn't do things right. He fired a couple shots off up into the ceiling. He said, let's try another take.
Yeah, and you do it. And you do it. So then, as time went up, the drinking age went up, and the band scene started drying up. Was that about when you started the guitar school?
The guitar school was going part-time prior to that because I was traveling in the 70s.
Yeah.
Only part-time. I'd come home, teach for 2 days.
Yeah, you had your little studio. Were you always on Shenango Street down there?
Nope. I was around the corner at Larkin's Music Store.
Yeah. Oh, Larkin's. Gosh, that was a piano place, wasn't it?
Yep, and they had teachers upstairs. Every store had teachers because if you're going to bring clients into the store, you're going to have to bring musicians in, so you got to have teachers. That's what brings them past the instruments to buy.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So basically, by the time you're on Shenango Street, and at what time did you start? What time did you call it quits and just say, this the music scene sucks now? When did it finally dry up?
I'm going to call it by '88. It's done. The reason, there's no more traveling. And if it is, it's few and far between. It was still there, but few and far between. So friends of mine like Dakota, who were on Columbia Records, and I warmed them up a lot of times. They were on the Queen tour. They were the warm-up band, Dakota. They're from down here in Scranton. I remember we had a lot of recording bands all over the United States at this time. When you seen them, that they had to get out, as you push the big ones out, you're going to keep pushing everybody down. It's a domino effect. All of a sudden, clubs I played, Johnny Winter and Rick Derringer are playing. And I'm not kidding.
Right.
See, that's just a quick example. And, many, many, many others. They're getting pushed into the bigger clubs that small bands would play. See?
Right.
And they're getting pushed out in 1986. Johnny Winter, we go to see him, and he's warming up George Thorogood. Now, what's the matter with that picture?
Oh, God.
But when we went to see Johnny Winter in '77, he's in '77. Johnny Winter put 80,000 people into the Texas arena to see him.
Right. I've seen some footage from that. Aerosmith played there. There's some good old stuff on that.
Now think about it, 80,000, and the next time you go 10 years up the line, he is warming up George Thorogood. We never seen anything so bad. George Thorogood was terrible. Johnny Winter warming him up. We were like scratching our head. What's the matter with this picture? Then we're talking with the bass player out back, and his name is John Parrish. And he's another guy we knew. Obviously, there's a lot of people in the business professionally that I did know. We're talking to John Parrish out back of the arena here in Binghamton, Johnny Winter's bass player. And he says, why don't you guys come down and to Dan Lynch's on First Ave, and I'm playing with my band this weekend. We're like, what? He said, yeah, I'm going to be finishing up with the tour with Johnny. We're going to be playing there. So we head down there to Dan Lynch's, First Ave in the village, right on the edge of the village there. And what do we find out? John Parrish is not a bass player. He's still around. He's playing in Chicago, I think. He is a guitarist, harmonica player, old blues, all this and that, white guy that just had his own band, but he couldn't get any farther with his blues band, so he had to play bass for Johnny.
Right.
We just couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. There was a girl on bass, him on guitar. They played good, the old Fender amps, this and that, and they had one music man on standby in front of this on the left-hand corner, and I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "That's on standby because Johnny sometimes pops in. He lives right here in New York."
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed and drank till 4 o'clock in the morning, and Johnny never came in. We could barely find the car.
Oh, I can imagine, but back in those days. But yeah, and then after a while, so you kind of called it quits, and you started, was that when you pretty much started focusing on instruction full time?
Yeah. Yep. But the method is what I focused on.
Yeah, right. And, exactly, what about the, as far as the lesson philosophy and the method, I know the tab and the chord thing, and the diagrams and everything. I always found it useful. I was amazed that, the guitar magazines didn't quite go so into depth. But
right. You knew that Guitar World magazine interviewed me for a job, I'm going to say 13 years ago, but it could have been 14, somewhere's up in there. Jim Walsh is a very well-known publicist friend of mine, been doing it 22 years for everybody. Warren Haynes, you name it, everybody. Too many to list. He's done John McLaughlin, this, that, everything. He's lived in France, California, New York City, everything. He tells the guy who was the head of it at that time, way back, 13, 14 years ago, listen, I know a guy upstate, he charts stuff, he's got a real good system. Guy calls me. I start talking with him, and I just said, I could show you an easier way to show this than you do in the magazine. And I have witnesses to this, that I did this, because if you look at the magazines, you'll see where it changed after what I'm going to tell you. I said, well, you show all notes and the staff and ties and this and that. And I go, but who would be reading music when you got bands like Chord on the front and that type of stuff? They can't be reading music. It would be much easier to use a tab system. And I said, when you do tab, you don't put the finger numbers under it. So how does people know what finger to use? Well, little did I know after an hour interview, and then I also told him how I list what scale the guy's playing. He's out of C form and D. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Little did I know. He probably was recording me, and he said, well, we pay $400 a chart. I would tell you what I want you to do. We only do a couple here and there. And I just said, well, I'll let you know if I'm interested. I'd say 3 months later, what do I see?
You see tab. You see tab and the
all tab, no staff, finger numbers up, things over it. And I called my friend, the publicist, and I said, there's why you can't say anything on the phone, see? Now, he still didn't get it, meaning you could have went a lot farther. But seeing he was from Long Island, I believe.
Yeah.
What do you think his income was for he's the publisher of the music division for that magazine? I think, what do they got, 500,000 subscriptions?
Something like that back in the day.
Okay, so watch what he said to me. This is a quote. I always tell this story. He said, well, it sounds to me like the way you show it, you're putting it on a silver plate for people. He said, we all have mortgages. And I just went blank. I didn't know what to say. I had no idea what to say.
No kidding. No kidding.
So he's long gone. They've replaced him with other people. But I really think it comes down to, this is like with songs, see, with the don't forget to give me your email before we close out on this so I can send you the video, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you should have that because if you can use it, I think you should use you already recorded this, a provocative documentary that compels people to stop and think about the, atrocities or the way that mankind has inflicted on each other. You know what I mean? Hatred is what it's about. So, not really. You're only in one phase of it. The song Change, we're just in a phase of it now for where we are in the time period of the universe. But hatred, it's been there for everything. As the song says, whether freedom or faith, maybe your color or race. You get it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. It wasn't designed for just one thing. It's talking about universal. That's why Einstein is featured in it. Mahatma Gandhi's in there. The Peace Girls from the Vietnam War ended up, and the World Peace Sign, etc. It's a very clear thing, and with what just happened in New York City, it's very clear. I guarantee if somebody saw that now at your school, they'd think a whole different thing of it, you know what I'm trying to say, than they would prior to that happening again in New York City. Agreed?
Oh, yeah. You might have a little bit too much faith in humanity.
Yeah, well, the whole catch is you won't stop it because it's the hatred of mankind towards one another. We're just in one part of it. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, it's been going on for a while. We've seen... Jeez.
Well, let me get this comment in. If I can find a place that could be used in Europe, what I made can be edited in simplicity. New events put in, more newspaper articles. The song depicts man's hatred towards one another, what time period in life, whether it's for race, religion, or what. And the catch is, if it could be used to have a fund in Europe that would bring people money to help people affected by terrorist acts, Syria's in it, all of that. There's many things that are in it, but a fund, that's what I would do with it, is use that tune. It's a perfect tune for it. Perfect tune, very neutral, not heavy metal, that's just a good tune, very good lyrics, very good harmony, really clear point with the video, like when people say, when you put it with the video, it's extremely clear. But you need a big publisher in Europe to pick up a second publisher to me. And then you have to open an independent account. Somehow, that's done through lawyers to where, hey, you want a copy of the song, you want to help terrorist people that have been affected by terrorists, a gigantic fund, send 50 cents and we'll send you a copy of the song, download free. You know what I'm saying? 50 cents, whatever, 75 cents. You couldn't beat that. The catch is you got to find people who want to do what I'm doing without trying to, have enormous amounts of money made on it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
As a lawyer told me, even the Red Cross wants money to do something.
Oh,
they want to make money because if they don't make money, they don't exist. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, even nonprofits still have overhead.
Right, but here's the good point. I own the publishing to the song. I own the copyright to the song. Those are two big things. I am Ettinger Music by lawyers, etc. Ettinger Music, BMI, is a legitimate publishing company. That's all you need. I need to be able to supply the material to somebody. That's what a publisher does. But listen to what else a publisher does. A publisher takes 50%. So when the Beatles got published, they lost 50% of their profit, even though they made millions. When Jimi Hendrix got published, he lost 50% of his profits, even though he's made millions. But there's another catch as we go down this list, from John Fogerty to this and that, etc. The law reads, when you are published by a big publisher, an assigned slip will move off of my copyright in the Library of Congress through the lawyer. A small amount of money will transfer for them to be able to publish my song, And here comes the punchline. You lose control of your song for 30 years. You own it, but you can't do nothing with it. That's what happened to Paul McCartney. That's what happened to every single artist, the Doors, this, that, etc. So like when I was in a possible deal for the Wilson Girls with You Just Can't Hide It, and the Apples with You Just Can't Hide It, the copyright lawyer said to me, listen, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, if they sold a lot of units, somebody like Hart did pick up on the tune in the mid-'90s, it's usually 6 digits for the songwriter because they get top 10 airplay. I think it's like 7 cents a play total times the world for everything, jukebox, this, that, everything, as it stands today. Half of that goes to the publisher, half goes to the artist. But the catch is, if you don't control the song, I wouldn't be able to do anything with it. So Change and my other songs, I'm the publisher, I'm the owner of the copyrights. That's what's important if you wanted to try to help even the people in Europe affected by terrorism. You get it?
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, you had to do some legal jumping around back in the day, right? You learn things by osmosis.
Yeah, in the old days, you would not be able to get this opportunity. John Fogerty was ripped off for all of his stuff. Every single one, the Doors. So what the copyright lawyer would tell you is, here's what you do. Put it through, well, you try to, as an exclusive license. What does it mean? They use the song for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, it comes back to us. Done. That's it. Now, when you look on McCartney records, Jimi Hendrix, the Doors, anyone, John Fogerty, guess what it says? Used by exclusive license. That's the only 2 ways to do it. Exclusive license, which they don't want to give that to anybody because they can't control you, or we'll publish it, and now you have no more control of it for 30 years. And at the end of 30 years, you may request it back. That's it. That's how it works. So,
interesting.
It's very interesting. That's it. You read every one, the Doors or anything. It's used by exclusive license. And Mark Levy is listed at the end of my video because I ran all that by him. That's a legal video I did. It's right to the point. It's part documentary, etc. And it also, the people I put in it 2 years ago are still in it. Boko Haram, all these violent organizations or whatever you want to call it. It's mankind against each other. See? So I want you to play, I'll send you a copy of that video. What is your email address? Because
it is, you ready?
Yep, okay, go ahead.
It is PIC AR SIC.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of another one. It's start over. It's PIC
Yeah.
APJ.
Okay, hang on. That's a total different one. APJ, yeah.
Then 71
at
Yahoo.
That's it?
Yeah, they gave that to me. They, when I first went back to Oneonta, and they give you like the first 4 letters of your last name, your first initial, second initial, and your date of birth. And they said in the future, if you ever conduct business, you don't want a stupid email like, stud muffin or hot mama or something like that, something innocuous with letters. And they're like, and this would probably be good for you. So I always kept it around.
Right. Yeah, you should keep your name in it so that's how they know where it is. So it's PIC APJ 71.
Correct.
Where? At AOL or what?
At Yahoo.
Okay, at Yahoo.
.com.
Now it's all small print?
Yeah, you bet.
At yahoo.com.
Okay. Just a little bit of background, just so what do you got left in at 4 o'clock?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, basically, geez, you have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. How old are they now?
Kristen is, I want to put this in too. Kristen is 33. She's a very successful producer in New York City. Very successful. She works for a large advertising company. They've just been in England for 1 month. She does commercials for TV. So she picked up some of the traits. Now we're moving on to production stuff. She has been an executive producer for one company in New York. She's now a producer. She just got back from Los Angeles for 2 weeks. They do, what's those, Bank of America, this, that, etc. What's those healthy candy bars you eat or whatever you call them? What do you call them? Healthy food things?
Oh, gosh, I know. I'll think of it.
Well, the company, she works for a huge company in New York City, and there's a whole team, but it's, creative team, then what does Hellman Mayonnaise want to do for the advertisement, then they go someplace and they hire actors, then they film it, you get what I'm saying? So the advertisements you see on TV, a good amount of them she's done. She's the producer. She has a huge resume.
Oh, good stuff. And it's done?
But no, she can't do anything for me because it's a total different thing. They'd like to. They'd like to because they know my stuff is good. But you can't inject something like that into a different business.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, and how old's your son by now?
Darren is a cop, and he's 32, 31, up in Syracuse, New York. Extremely gang-related stuff type of work, not a regular cop.
Absolutely. Oh, he's on the task force.
Yeah, he's on that type of stuff. The CRT division, the special takedown on all those gangs and this and guns. This one, huge. He's in harm's way every night with stuff.
That must scare the hell out of you sometimes.
Yeah, those are pretty rugged guys, though. I want to tell you, they don't mess around. They're lethally trained. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what year did you get married?
Early 80s.
Early 80s, something there. You know your anniversary, though, at least, right?
How's that? Pretty good, right?
Yeah,
Make sure if you get any chance on this, professors of that, I want to know what they think of the change video. Even if you just download them a copy. It's just the only thing I can't do with it now. I may put this up again because of what just happened in New York City again. It may go up again, but I took it down because really what I need is help to put it in Europe.
Right.
Follow?
Right, absolutely. All right. Well,
it's what they call a second publisher. You put that in Europe, I guarantee you, with what's the shit that's been going on. Now, you remember the video, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, I mean, think of it now after what's just happened just right now, right down the street from you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Now people are starting to think, hey, I wonder if it's going to be, I thought that was only something that could happen once. Maybe I better rethink that. It just happened again in one of the highest protective cities in the world because you're not going to be able to stop these people when you have like a lone wolf type of idea, see?
Yeah.
What they need to stop is or work away from the hatred.
Yes, that's gonna end hatred in the world.
Well, I'm going to say this again. I'm not trying to give it a plug, but think about it. It says, "Why should one man hate what another man is? Why can't they relate? We all have to live here. You can't get off the planet, so what are you going to do?" And then my last comment on that second thing there. Don't forget, I might have to download you one thing of the lyrics on that too.
All right.
Because it says the people are living in fear because they know someone hates them is near.
Yeah, and your vocals are pretty clear. I don't think I ever had a hard time understanding it. When are you going to put up Time Traveling Man?
I know everybody always asks that, but I've stayed away from the guitar stuff now because that's what I was known for, and we're into a whole different time period now. I have to do these other songs. I call them puppy songs.
Throw some guitar songs in there. That the young shredders that are actually going to get better and playing fast, and the old people that remember the Guitar Hero phases. Yeah, you need get a couple guitar ones up there.
Well, you find any connections with any of this stuff, you let me know.
No, you bet. I'm just going to write up the feature story, do the fact sheet. What would you say is the first year that you started? If Roy Ettinger Guitar School, what year did it start? What year were you in the office, basically?
Well, no, it started part-time, 73.
Yeah, it's hard time in 73. All right, good stuff.
Well, that's because the guy said every time I did the charts, people would call.
Mhm.
Then they always had books that didn't show you really how to do it. You know what I'm talking about.
The Mel Bay, you know.
Yeah, I have over 1,000 charts on file now.
Good stuff. Any advice for hopeful guitarists coming up in the world?
They better write something good.
Or maybe get a turntable and get the hell away from guitar.
That's right. And another thing, only date rich women.
Right. Yeah, your wife, right? You're still married, right?
Oh yeah. First thing to check with all of them is to say, okay, is your family rich or poor? As soon as they say rich, say good. We're going out tonight.
And show me a picture of your mom, so I know what you're going to look like in 25 years.
Yeah. Do a good job on this thing, man. You might pick up some more things. Like I told you, I'll bet you they'll think totally different. I know the whole subject of what you got is not just the video, but people are going to think much different about that now after what just happened last week.
Absolutely.
Sure, because you know New York City's covered. New York City followed London. They're covered with cameras. They got that idea from London. England does that. They have all the Muslims and everything, you know, and not just them, but everything is covered, but especially the Muslim area because of the attacks there. And
you don't see garbage cans on the street in London because that's
no, you can't. But New York City is the second most protected city in the world, and look what the guy just did. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So, they're going to have to come up with another plan. You know, you can't watch every rat thing around the corner. You can't watch every mouse that runs across the street. We're in a very strange time now, but I want to know what they think of that video, okay? Even if it's just the professor.
Absolutely. All right, let's tell you what. I got an hour phone call out of you. I'm sure there's
I'll talk to you.
Some poor sap out there who wants to come on in and get his lesson.
All right, I'll see you, Pat.
All right, good stuff. Say hi to Bill for me, all right?
All right, take care, man.
You are.
Bye-bye.